He was trained as an electrical engineer, decided on a showbiz career while at Queen's College, Oxford. He paved the way for a new British television comedy, not the 9 o'clock news, Blackadder, Mr. Bean. He's received numerous international prizes for his outstanding works, and he is known to be extremely selective about public appearances, and talk shows tops his list of things to avoid. Please welcome the man behind the mask, Rowan Atkinson. This time you take this off. Rowan, I start with the most horrifying thing to do. I start with a quote that I read.
Oh dear. From
you. It says, "The problem with talk shows is that you're supposed to amuse. I generally rely on being interesting rather than funny. They, that is, us here, are not actually very interested in people who are very interesting. They just want people with wacky stories about airports, and I haven't really got any."
How true.
It's true.
How true. I haven't.
So how was Kastrup Airport?
No, I have no stories.
No. But how do you explain the man in the mask, the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde?
Well, I don't know, really. I suppose it's just a job, you know, that's all. It's just I suppose that I'm just an actor, probably, at heart, rather than a comedian. I'm always rather confused, as I think I know you are, about whether I'm a comedian or whether I'm an actor.
No.
You know, or whether I'm
not
an actor.
confused at all.
You're not confused
No.
at all? Oh, well, I'll stop talking.
I know you're boring now, and I know you will
exactly.
consider...
Exactly. You'll be nodding off in no time. I do draw a pretty sharp line between the two, which is why interviews like this are generally quite rare things, because I think generally that people want you to be funny, so I try not to be unfunny, but I try to make up for my lack of funniness within myself by hopefully trying to be, you know, vaguely intelligent and interesting about it. I can be funny, I think, as myself, when I'm with very good friends in small rooms, and I'm very relaxed.
Well,
but as soon as I'm in a big
it's just
studio,
the two of us here, so...
and all those millions, all those people out there.
No, but it strikes me that Richard Curtis says that you find almost nothing funny.
Yeah. I'm not
almost got you there.
Yes, I almost laughed, didn't I? But not quite. No, I find it difficult to laugh at other things. Very few people and very few situations make me laugh. I sometimes feel some of it is in the back of me where I'm analysing the humour, or I'm analysing the joke rather than enjoying it. So somebody tells a very good joke and I go, very funny.
And they stop telling jokes.
And they stop telling jokes, but I'm thinking about, yes, I suppose it is funny, you know what I mean? I'm kind of, it's sort of clocking, it's sort of slowly filtering its way down through the system. And sometimes I laugh a long time afterwards when I suddenly realise how well structured the joke was and how beautifully told it was. And then I can laugh at it.
And then people look at you if you were some...
Yes, many, many hours later, as if I'm a madman. I mean, generally, I enjoy the performance more than the joke. I usually enjoy the performer and his attitude. You know, it's the attitude with which humour is told which I enjoy so much. In other words, generally the things that make me laugh are characters, you know, it's people who kind of present a sort of truth to you. I mean, even though it's mad or it's funny or it's wacky or it's rude or it's silly, but there's a sort of a truth there that you identify with, and you think, I know that situation, I've been there, or I've seen someone like that on the train, or I am someone like that, and I prefer to keep it hidden. And yet here I am being characterised extremely well, and that does make me laugh.
So dramatic situations rather than jokes.
Yes, exactly.
How would you describe Mr. Bean? I mean, I wondered about the name. Bean, has been, a vegetable. No.
Yeah. We started with you know, zucchini, and
and Mr. Zucchini.
Mr. Zucchini,
yeah.
or Mr. Potato, or Mr. Cauliflower, or Mr. Cabbage, or, you know, Mr. And then we just sort of thought, Bean.
Bean.
You know, it's short and it's silly. And we were, yeah, it was either that or the name of a bird, you know, Mr. Wren or Mr. Chaffinch. But, you know, birds and vegetables tend to be the funniest names, they say.
Birds and vegetables.
So we homed in on Bean, yeah.
Okay, obviously there's a homage to Jacques Tati's Monsieur Hulot.
Yes. Yes, there was. I mean, and it's quite real. I mean, I don't think Mr. Bean is anything like Monsieur Hulot.
No.
I think he is quite different, but at the same time, there are similarities. And it's something about the comedy of not much happening, of nothing happening. The first Mr. Bean sketch that Richard Curtis and I ever wrote was, well, from what that falling asleep joke came from it, from the church sketch, which was in the very, very first.
Yes, I saw that.
Mr. Bean, when he can't stay awake in the church and the sermon is droning on and he can't stay awake. And in theory, nothing's happening. I mean, when you explain the joke to people, you know, we had this one line, man can't stay awake. That was the script.
And it takes 10 minutes.
And it takes 10 minutes.
Right.
And you read it and you think, well, I don't know, you know, it might be funny, but what's funny about it? And what's funny is the sort of truth of it, is the fact that you can see yourself there and you think, yes, actually, you know, if I was slightly less self-conscious and slightly less aware of myself, if I had slightly less self-control, then I would be like Mr. Bean, and I too would be on my head on the floor with my feet in the air. And you can sort of, and you identify with it, but it's sort of the comedy of nothing happening. I mean, there aren't, you know, fire engines or police cars or men rushing in the door or women with underwear around their ankles. It's all, you know, it's very kind of uneventful. It's very ordinary, very basic sort of stuff, like the man making the sandwich. Mr. Bean making the sandwich in the park, that you sort of say, well, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. But he does it in a very eccentric way. And you think, no, that's not. And yet, you know, if you were in that situation, you might do something similar, but you'd stop yourself. Well, I would.
Cheers.
Cheers, to good health.
But if we compare Monsieur Hulot and Mr. Bean,
Yeah.
there's a difference in psychology as well.
Yes, there is. Well, I mean, Mr. Bean is nastier. Mr.
Yeah, I
Bean
would
is
say
quite
so.
a nasty man.
Why?
He's quite... Well, because if he has any morals, if he has any values, then they're the morals of a 9-year-old boy. That's how I always see him. If anyone wants to ask a question about Mr. Bean, you know, what would he do if this happened? You know, what sort of car does he drive? What does he dream about? I would say, what does a 9-year-old boy think about? And then I say, oh, that's what he'd think about. And of course, towards women, for instance, he's, you know, he sort of romanticizes them. You know, they're sort of mother figures, I suppose, more than. But the idea of a relationship or a sexual relationship, and that is just not part of his makeup at all. It just never enter his brain.
No.
I mean, you must presume that he knows nothing about it. You must presume that.
No, but the good thing about nine-year-old kids are that they have parents to kind of control them.
Yes.
Mr. Bean is totally...
He's an orphan. Yes, he's an orphan. He's a child without parents.
Yes.
And of course, we haven't given him parents. We haven't given him any family. He has no friends.
No, it just comes from above.
He's just sad. He's a poor
that's it.
man.
Yeah, we all feel.
But he makes me laugh. He really does. I mean, of all the people that I've played or tried to create, there's something about him that gets to me, that sometimes I can, when we're rehearsing or when we're trying to write and we're thinking of situations, and you think, yes, that's just what Mr. Bean would do, and it makes me laugh.
But it's funny, the more alien, the more malicious, the more cowardish he is, the more we laugh. Maybe from fear, I don't know. We asked one of the more well-known Bean watchers to give his opinion. You can see it on the screen here.
I think it's very clever in as much that it translates worldwide because of the lack of dialogue. I mean, in much the same way that Benny Hill translated worldwide. But I think maybe because of that, there's reductionism in the terms of the comedy. It becomes a very simplistic form of comedy. Because if it's just a visual gag, you have to be not too sophisticated to devise visual gags that are going to work throughout the world.
set David Bowie that we met in London last week.
How flattering.
Yes. But do you agree with him that a silent character has certain limitations?
Well, yes, generally visual comedy, because it's so accessible, because it's so obvious, really, it's so simple, which is why, you know, children from the age of 3 can enjoy Mr. Bean. And people aged 85 and 100 can enjoy Mr. Bean. It appeals across a very broad age range, but particularly to the very young, because it's so simple, it's so manifest. There are no words, and there are no literary references. There's nothing subtle about it, I'm afraid, in the end, and that is the limitation. In the end, particularly, you know, if we live, as we do, in an educated society, you know, we read books and we enjoy words and we enjoy word play and we enjoy literature, then I know a lot of people, for instance, who like The Blackadder, which was full of words and full of silliness and metaphor and great long, ridiculous, eloquent
dialogue,
expressions of simile and all sorts of, you know, complicated English, basically, complicated words. But they don't like Mr. Bean. They find it too simplistic, as David Bowie used the right word. Simplistic it is, and that's the limitation. And in the end, I feel as though you can get a bit sick of it. I mean, you can enjoy it. I haven't got sick of it yet, because he amuses me, and he makes me laugh.
Even before Blackadder, before Mr. Bean, you popped up of the British Review with as an artist who had almost entire artistic control. I have a small clip I'm going to show you where you, with almost no words, get the grasp of the audience. It's a bit from the Schoolmaster sketch.
Oh, right.
Nancy Boy Potter. Nibble. Orifice. Plectrum. Poins. Sediment. Soda. Ta. Under manager. Zob. Absent.
We're taken from this Secret Policeman's Ball for the benefit of Amnesty International. And with this kind of material, you kind of set the example of a new British comedy. They talked about the new John Cleese, the new Benny Hill. Was it difficult to be a comedian in that post-Python period?
Yes, it was. We were constantly... Yes, because Python was at its height when I was at university, when I was at college, and they were the heroes, and I started working, you know, on Not the 9 O'Clock News and The Blackadder within 5-7 years of that time, and it was difficult because it's like this shadow hanging over you. And that's why The Blackadder was set in the 15th century, because we were so aware of Fawlty Towers, which was the other thing that was going on just before we did The Blackadder. We thought, how are we going to make a programme which is not compared unfavourably to Fawlty Towers? And so we thought, well, at least if we set it in the 15th century, they can't possibly, surely, draw any parallels with a hotel on the south coast of England in 1975. And I don't think they did. They hated it for other reasons, but they didn't compare us unfavourably with Fawlty Towers. But it was, and Not the 9 O'Clock News, luckily, was very different from Monty Python. I mean, completely different. Monty Python was very wacky and very surreal, totally absurd. And really, Not the 9 O'Clock News was something else. Not the 9 O'Clock News was about reality. It was about kind of more about real performances and hopefully, you know, a bit more sort of real characterization and parodying real television and television news of the time.
On Not the 9 O'Clock News, it was Mel Smith, yourself, and Griff Rhys-Jones,
Yes.
with Pamela Stevenson to do that. We stopped Griff Rhys-Jones in London to ask
Did
him,
you?
yes, just to give us a comment on you, because he knows you.
Rowan is an extraordinary comedian because just, you know, every time you go and see somebody else, a comedian, on stage, you always think, well, I wish I had his act. Well, that's a good idea. I wonder if I could pinch that. Or, yes, that's a remarkable thing. I can use that. I could probably develop that. With Rowan, when you watch him, particularly on stage, you think, that's absolutely extraordinary. How, you know, that's so unique that you have no... sometimes it defies a sort of sense of analysis. And all I feel when I watch him is that I could never do that, that his style of performing is so unique and extraordinary that there's no... It's inimitable and therefore very, very precious, in a sense, to watch. And I didn't really mean that as a criticism. I only mean that when he does something like the Schoolmaster monologue, which relies upon 5 names and a great deal of inner presence in order to maintain the structure and the performance, that's a very different form of comedy from the sort that I feel comfortable doing, which is very loose. I mean, I'd sort of a messy comedian, if you like, and he's an enormously precise comedian. And that's a wonderful skill.
Well, nice words. How did a messy comedian from Cambridge and a perfectionist like yourself from Oxford happen to work together?
The BBC are very good. The BBC are very good at bringing people from very diverse backgrounds with diverse attitudes together. And it was one of those things that was got together by the producer, John Lloyd, who I've worked with a great deal since. He produced The Blackadder also. And he just chose, from what I gather, 4 people, the 4 of us, to do things together. And the great thing about a team, I'm so glad I did it. I was going to do a programme by myself at first, at another television station, and I made one programme in which I played 3 different characters, and that's what I was going to do as a series, just me, you know, the Rowan Atkinson show.
Yeah, it looks nice.
and I was very scared about the Rowan Atkinson show. It didn't seem to me to be the right thing to do at that time. And I thought I'd much rather do something in which I'm just a little bit more in the background, in which we can share the responsibility, the team way. Share the responsibility, and if it's good, you all take the credit, and if it's bad, you say it was him. He was bad, I was fine.
When you did not, TV was the target. Also, the TV interview was.
Do you mind if I call you Elton?
No, it's fine.
Good. Well, Elton. I'm sure the first question that everybody would like to ask you is this. Funny name, Elton. How did you come by it?
Well, I used to be in a band, and I wanted to become a singer in my own right, and I wanted to choose a name, and the saxophone player in the band was called Elton, so I chose that name.
Did you ever consider John Elton?
No.
You didn't? Okay. Right, well, let's start with those early albums, then. One of which I believe was called simply Elton John.
Yes, that's correct.
And you didn't feel awkward with the name at all?
No.
You didn't feel that people might say, wait a minute, they mean John Elton. They've cocked up the record sleeve and printed the bloody name the wrong way around. You didn't think that?
No, I thought it sounded great, and, you know, I thought people would be more interested in the music rather than the name.
Now, to the songs themselves, many of the lyrics were, of course, written by Bernie Taupin.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Well, I'd like to talk about Bernie for a while, since obviously he's been an enormous influence on your career.
Yes, he has, yes.
Tell me, did you ever discuss changing his name? Because presumably Taupin Bernie would have been more consistent with your Elton John.
Look, do you want to talk about the old songs or not?
All right, the songs. The old songs. Your song is a classic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite popular, yes.
Well, there is a verse in that song in which, talking about the eyes of the person that the song is about, you sing, "Excuse me for asking, these things I do. You see, I've forgotten if they're green or they're blue."
Yes.
What I'd like to know is this. Is it this sort of chronic forgetfulness that led you to forget that Elton is not, in fact, a Christian name at all? It is a surname. And not a very attractive one at that. Well, I had some questions to ask him.
Relevant ones?
And he found it difficult to answer them.
Yeah, he did, of course
That's all
he
I
did.
can say.
Where will Mr. Bean's escapades end, do you think? You're not tied up in
We
what?
had an idea, but should I tell you what the idea is?
Yes, please do.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Yes, all right, yes, I will. It was this idea for the last, which we may never do, the last episode of Mr. Bean, is that he's driving along a country lane extremely fast in his Mini, and he sees this spaceship landing in a field, and he stops the car, and he looks out, and he thinks, what's that spaceship doing there? And he drives into the field with his Mini, and he stops outside the spaceship. And he looks around, and he looks up, and suddenly the door goes... and this bright light comes out of the spaceship. And a Mr. Bean walks out of the spaceship.
Of course.
And then another Mr. Bean walks out of the spaceship. And he sees Mr. Bean, and they all shake hands. And Mr. Bean says, hello, how are you? And then 25 more Mr. Beans all come out of the spaceship, and they all pat him on the back and say, you know, very nice to see you. And then all the Mr. Beans go up into the spaceship, and he shakes hands with the captain and the guy on the bridge. And then the door goes up, and the spaceship takes off. And that's the end of Mr. Bean. So thereby, kind of, but we may do it. We may do it. It's a kind of silly idea. I mean, there is this idea that he may not be of our world. He may be from another place.
I believe he is. Then I won't have to ask you about the future of British comedy.
What, because I'll be gone?
Yes, you will. So you wouldn't be able to answer that. No,
I'll be out of there.
I'm going to ask you 5 quick ones.
Oh, goodness me.
The nasty part. Yes.
Do I win any money if I get them all?
No, you still owe me £5.
Oh, yeah.
I know that you hate...
You know I hate
What was that? I
being
missed
asked 5 questions.
Okay.
I was just a face. Just...
You have a lot of faces.
Nothing exciting.
Okay. Which of your many faces are your favourite one?
Probably one of Mr. Bean's. Just that sort of lost.
Okay.
Somebody lost. That amuses me.
Is that because you feel mostly connected to that feeling of being lost?
I feel for him. Yes, I do feel for him. I feel for his loneliness. Yeah.
Are you a loner?
Is that the second question, or a follow-up to number 1? Am I a loner? No, I like being alone for some of the time, but most of the time I enjoy being with people I love. Oh.
That's nice. I'm asking you because I'm aware that you're very protective about your private life, and
Yes.
I won't go into that much. But I know that your other passion, besides that of acting,
Yes.
is cars.
Yes, I do have a great interest in motor cars and motorsport. Yep, motor racing.
Why cars? You even write about
I
cars.
don't know. I write about them, yeah, for a monthly magazine in England. I don't know. I've always loved them. I think it's being a farmer's son that I was, that somehow you grow up with machinery and tractors and combine harvesters and on the land, and there's something about machinery that I've just always enjoyed, and there's something, it's a great release, driving, actually.
But if you yourself were a car, what kind of car would that be?
If I were a car,
Yes.
what kind of
You did
car
a sketch
would
one
that be?
where it was called Mr. Car Park, I remember.
Yes,
So-
yes. Oh, dear me, what kind of car would I be?
But don't go into that.
I'd be,
A Morris?
No, I think I'd be quite a discreet car.
Aston Martin?
Not to... Yeah, I mean, Aston Martins are cars that... I've had a few, as you know. Cars.
Yes.
I've tended to come back to Aston Martins because they are sort of discreet, but they're very English. They're very fast, which I'm not. But there's some, yeah, yes, an Aston Martin or a Lancia, an Italian car called Lancia. I enjoy them. Well, the fast ones.
The fast ones.
Not the slow ones.
You don't drive too fast, do you?
Not too fast, no. No, just fast enough. That's how fast I drive.
Then, okay, if you were a car, where would you park?
These are very difficult questions, yeah. I can't tell you.
Yes,
Here,
but I'm
in a
trying
car
to...
park, I'd park in a garage.
Oh, you do?
I'd stay off the street. Yes, I'd want to be in a garage at night.
Protected.
Protected, yes, exactly. And out of the public gaze.
The reason why I ask is, of course, you've toyed with the idea of acting in Los Angeles. You played a part in Hot Shots 2.
Yes.
I was wondering, maybe you would park your talent in Hollywood for a while.
Park my talent in Hollywood? Well, that's...
For them to exploit.
Well, that's not the equivalent of parking in a garage. That's the equivalent of parking in the middle of an airfield with bright lights on you from all sides. That's the equivalent there.
Yeah, but you park privately in a garage.
Park and then run out into the middle of the airfield and then...
Professionally.
Run back into the garage again. Hollywood is a very, very difficult place to be, as I'm sure you know, particularly for a foreign artist. I mean, foreign to America. I.e. all of us, it is a very difficult place to act because they've got their own agenda and their own way of making films and their own ideas about how you should be packaged and what you can do. And something I suppose I've grown to believe in over the years is in my own instinct, and I think I know, best what I can do. I'm very difficult to fit in to the Hollywood jigsaw. Yeah. I'm a very awkward shape.
Very nice meeting you.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice trip back. Rowan Atkinson, ladies and gentlemen.